Right, this is Uncanny Origins for a short-lived Marvel series from the 90s and a very unfairly short-lived series. I have talked about this before, but this is quite seriously the most purposeful series that Marvel published in the 90s. This is something that is for new readers. And then you get to an issue like this, which is brilliant because in a series that largely features retellings of origins of the A-list characters, you have a random issue that is Firestorm. This makes Firestorm seem as important as Hulk or Cyclist. And if you were new to comics, you were being sold this character on an equal playing field to the other characters. To long-time Marvel fans, we might sneer and laugh about Firestorm randomly being spotlighted as if he is as important as Doctor Strange. But let me ask you a question. Where else have you ever read Firestorm's origin? The answer is contained in this video within a few seconds. This is Firestorm. Firestorm is one of Galactus Man's skater boys. In order of appearance, he was the third, but due to retcons in certain others, he can no longer be called the third. Firestorm was created by Gary Conman and Sal Buscema, brother of John Buscema. And he first appeared in Thor 220 something. 225 I want to say, but I'm also thinking 224 possibly. Gary Conman also created Firelord at DC. But let's not get into how that character thoroughly rips off a different Marvel character who will be mentioned a lot in this video anyway. Firestorm, the Marvel character, was actually possibly the briefest of Galactus Man's skater boys, because he quit pretty much in his first appearances. He would habitually show up in Thor comics as an ally, which then translated over to the Avengers. But we will one day be talking about those issues as they were in the Secret Wars II Omnibus and hold a special place in my heart. We got parts of Firestorm's origin over the years in dialogue, but the most significant was told in Thor 306 by Marky Mark G and Neil Pollard. A very brief accounting for events, and it is this page upon which this entire issue of Uncanny Origins is based. And that is what makes this issue so special. We are getting a story mostly untold before. We knew all this happened, but we never saw it as a story. We only saw it as a photo album. This isn't done brilliantly. This could be done a lot better. But of all the issues of Uncanny Origins, this is doing summit almost new. We also sneak in another character's origin too. Firestorm lives on Kandor, the alien planet Kandor, as featured and introduced in Black Star. He is training to be a Black Star, and his hero is this old war horse called Gabriel. And our writing isn't deep or layered. This series is obviously intended for all ages, and the art style kind of goes with that. The writing is very blunt and simple, but I do like that they managed to seed the idea of Firestorm and friendship throughout. Friends and friendship are important to Firestorm, and Gabriel is his friend now. Gabriel, the war hero of the Black Star Corps. I am doing this as a public service because I find that the internet, the Andy books, etc., they are all shite at this. When did the Black Star Corps first appear? Some people will say Black Star issue 1, on account of Dick Ryder becoming a Black Star, or the appearance of the Black Star who gave Dick Ryder his powers. I don't entirely disagree with that in concept, but that isn't really an on-panel appearance. What I was interested in was when the Black Star Corps began to be depicted entirely as wearing the same sort of uniform as Dick Ryder wears, when they became, quite obviously, a rip-off of Green Lanterns. Some things cite the first appearance of the Black Star Corps as the final issues of Black Star, when Black Star goes to Kandor and we meet Black Star Prime. Again though, he is the only one we see. To me, it wasn't plainly established that Kandor was protected by an army of Black Stars. The actual answer is in fact Fantastic Force 205, where we see a bunch of Black Stars fighting in a war against the Skrulls. That was the first time we saw people besides Dick Ryder, Black Star Prime, and the one that died and gave Dick Ryder his powers as Black Stars. Gabriel is another character whose story we will come to, but were I to criticise this issue, and it isn't really something I want to criticise because I love its existence and its intent, but I would say the enormous mistake made here is that most of this is all before Firestorm became Firestorm. We don't really get to see Firestorm in action. We don't even get a showing of his powers or capabilities. We instead get a large amount of lore and very basic character motivation that is added to his backstory. I respect all of that, but it does have the unfortunate effect of sidelining the Firestorm part of Firestorm. In this, we have Firestorm and Gabriel. They are stationed on a ship together, and they get into all sorts of misadventures with Skrulls and the Kree, and I assume that is the Brotherhood of Babadook up top. They're not entirely on model. We have a very short downtime moment where Gabriel confesses to Firestorm that he is bored. He wants new adventure. He wants greater purpose. So let's explain who Gabriel is. He is Air Prancer. Gabriel is Galactus Man's second skater boy, Air Prancer. But much like Firestorm, his place as second no longer applies. He was created by Stanley, the Man, Lee, and Big Sal Buscema, brother of Little John Buscema. And Air Prancer was first seen in Fantastic Force 120. The underlying thing is that Air Prancer has spent most of the years since then dead or alive as a robotic copy. And it is here where Gabriel, Firestorm and their crew encounter Galactus Man in space. I like how Galactus Man and even Air Prancer aren't dealt with until it's time for Firestorm to become Firestorm. In fact, we don't really see Air Prancer. We get his origin. This is when Gabriel became Air Prancer, but we don't see it. We get the build-up to it and the reasons and motivation why, but we don't see it. And that is good because it doesn't take attention away from Firestorm or completely dilute Firestorm's origin with Air Prancer and seeing the same thing happen to someone else before it happens to Firestorm. As I said though, I think we spend far too much time to get to Firestorm. Even if we do some neat off-panel build-up of Air Prancer as Galactus Man's skater boy. Firestorm and the crew are surveying the damage to a planet caused by Galactus Man, and a survivor tells them and warns them all about Air Prancer. I also forgot to mention there is a really superficial level character beat where Firestorm is having a relationship with the woman in purple. But what is really driving him is he wants to save Gabriel. Gabriel went missing one day. We know he became Air Prancer, but Firestorm thinks that his friend was lost in space and he needs to save him. And all the beats are very basic writing, but I appreciate it. In the end, Firestorm becomes Firestorm, Galactus Man's new skater boy, and we learn that Air Prancer is no longer in his service. Some very clunky and not very useful recaps of Silver and Bronze Age stories that establish for a new reader that Gabriel became Air Prancer, and we also quickly get through some of Firestorm's old stories. I like this image here with him on his knees. The art is by Dave Edgar Hoover, who drew some of Marky Mark's Captain America. And I like that we see a different style for him on this series. Marky Mark is going to be very relevant on the next pages. We get to a recap of Thor 305 and 306, which were by Marky Mark, and the latter obviously was the issue which established all of this backstory that this issue is basing itself on. And over here we have a tribute to Mark. He passed away August 12th, 1996, at the age of 43. We have a host of friends, colleagues and peers remembering him. And I feel a lot of cynicalness with tributes like this. Part of the problem is I was a stand-up comedian for years, and anything like that would be an excuse for disgusting people to abuse and exploit it for the sake of their own image. We see the same in any circles. People using a tragedy or an event to either make themselves look good or make it about them. I actually, however, think this is totally sincere. All the people we hear from are either friends of Mark, or they had long working relationships with him, or they were working next door to him for years. There's no one here that makes me go, why did you have to get them? There's no one who feels like they are lying or faking feelings. Nobody is pushing themselves here. What I'm saying is, Tom B. vote isn't there. We end with a further dedication to Marky Mark with the final splash page showing Firestorm in space. This isn't a perfect comic, but it is hard to really criticise it after the onslaught of final pages being all about the death of my favourite comic book writer. I definitely admire this issue and what it presents and the possibilities that this series adds. I think the story serviceably does its job, and I wish Uncanny Origins had ran for years and years. When it comes to insincere tributes, by the way, I don't want people to think me a hypocrite. If you go back, you will notice I called him his real name throughout discussion of that page. I don't like dwelling on the deaths of creatives because we're at the point where more and more are passing away, and it won't be long before we lose some absolute favourite. And yeah, I don't really... It doesn't seem very fulfilling to have to always be acknowledging the latest great creator who passed away. And especially seems inappropriate for a channel that constantly has called them the wrong name. Anyway, I give this 7.99 up